Twilight leaned on window panes. The cobblestones shone bright. A phonograph breathed soft refrains into the rainy night. The waiter stacked the little plates and turned the corner lamp. The velvet kept its patient warmth against our sleeves grown damp. You stirred the spoon, then set it by, and watched the street below. A teardrop trembled in your eye, but would not let me know, until the cups went cold. We let the rainy hour unfold, and kept the words we could not hold, until the cups went cold. The waiter brought the little tray and left the check with bread. The amber lamp made velvet play in blue and threads of red. You rose a little from your chair, then slowly sat once more. Outside the rain was everywhere. Inside, no one reached the door. The phonograph grew faint and small. A reverie came near. The rain made silver on the wall and held us longer here. No serenade came through the street, no violin took part, only the waiter in retreat, and rain laid softly on my heart. And then I knew what sorrow meant, not thunder, loss or blame, but staying past the time we spent, still warming one dear name, until the cups went cold. We let the rainy hour unfold, and kept the words we could not hold, until the cups went cold. At last you drew your gloves on slow. The rain had weakened gray. One pale ring kept a little glow, long after you went away. depot lamps came on at 6. The rails were black with shine, and every car along the shed held stillness in its line. You stood beside the workbench there, with grease upon your cuff. The punch cards clipped in little rows, the wire brush worn rough. A driver hung his cap and left, a cleaner swept the sand, and October through the open doors put cold into the hand. They brought the bells from car 16, from 12, from 23. You polished each with patient cloth till brass came up to see. But one small bell stayed dull and brown, set farther from the light. The bell from old McCall's front car, not rung since Tuesday night. Leave the trolley bell, leave it as it came. Some things should not shine too soon after losing name. Leave the trolley bell, no one had to know why one brass voice stayed quiet there, where all the others glowed. The foreman said the schedule changed, the south line needed 4. The clock above the token cage kept counting at the door. You wrapped the polished bells in cloth, then checked each painted tag. But when your fingers touched that one, they slowed around the rag. I watched you set it back again, not hidden, not displayed. A little weather left on brass, a little sorrow stayed. No picture stood beside his name, no flowers marked the rail. Only that unbrightened bell kept silence in detail. There are men a city loses between a corner and a stop, between a fare dropped in a box and rain along the shop. The timetable moves forward, the cars go out the same, but one hand may refuse the shine that hurries past a name. Leave the trolley bell, let the dark brass keep what the evening almost took, and no one had to speak. Leave the trolley bell, not ribbon, not farewell, only the sound it did not make, still ringing where it fell. At 7 cars went rolling out, their windows bright and long, and on the bench that quiet bell remembered all its songs. Twilight rested on the frames, the lamp rehearsed its gold, the phonograph with patient grace unfastened from the cold. You did not ask me for the dance, you only crossed the room and drew my chair a little back, as if to lift the gloom. The velvet curtains kept the rain, the grate kept back the blue, and every little thing we owned grew hushed to look at you. Then when your fingers touched my sleeve, so lightly, with a sigh, the years we never thought to name went quiet by and by. The evening learned your name from how you moved, not what you said. From lamplight on your silvered head, the evening learned your name. The teacups had gone pale with steam, the embers breathed in red. You smiled and said, my darling heart, the way you always said. No miracle had crossed the rug, no bright occasion shone, unless one counts the tender grace of never being alone. Outside the cobblestones were dim and silvered by the rain. Inside one little waltz began and made us young again. No grand serenade came down the stair, no trumpet split the air. But when your hand enclosed my own, I felt how love lives there. Not in the blaze that startles youth, nor vows that bloom and burn, but in the hush a whole room keeps for those who still return. The evening learned your name from how you moved, not what you said. From lamplight on your silvered head, the evening learned your name. The record thinned to whispered dust, the fire withdrew to rose. Still starlight lay across the rug in little afterglows. And long after the last note passed, and long after the rain grew tame, my heart kept moving through that room where evening learned your name. ushers dim the aisle lights down, the organ tried a chord, and in the booth above the crowd, the second reel was stored. You stood beside the rewinder there, with film across your hand, a little lamp, a silver can, the picture yet unplanned. The children rustled paper bags, their mothers settled hats. A newsreel drum began below, with horses, flags and maps. Then one bright strip went loose and thin, a torn frame near the side. You caught it before the wheel could pull the afternoon too wide. You trimmed the edge with careful shears, then brushed the dust away, and laid the broken inches flat where all the shadows lay. The cement smelled of orange peel, the sprocket holes shone small, and when your thumb held down the seam, the booth forgot us all. I had come up to ask the time, or so I told myself. My ticket stub was folded twice and warming on the shelf. You did not turn, but softly said, "Hold still until it dries." And all the moving world below was waiting for your eyes.
One clear splice, one clear splice.
Nothing anyone would see when
faces filled the light. One clear splice.
Yet when the reel ran through, a broken moment crossed the screen, as if it always knew. I think of how the crowd below would never guess the place where one small tear was made to pass without a jump or trace. Some care is not a grand repair, not gold, not speech, not art. It simply joins what nearly failed and lets the story start.
One clear slice, one clear slice,
held between your patient hands before the matinee light.
One clear slice.
I saw it then and knew a life may keep its picture whole because of hands like you. The projector caught, the reel went round, the room below grew bright, and through that little mended place, the lovers crossed in white. The room was blue as folded silk. The pane kept one small star. A hush from tired twilight stayed about the things that are. My brushes waited in their jar, like guests who knew the hour. The floorboards held the night a while. The curtain breathed and bowed. Below, a magnolia moved so lightly in the air. Its fragrance climbed the narrow stair, as if to find me there. Then on the glass my silhouette grew pale and fine and thin, as though the morning entering had asked to be let in. Where the blue light went, something in me went also, not lost enough for grief to know. Where the blue light went, no footstep climbed the attic stair, no voice disturbed the room, yet every jar and silver tray seemed listening in the gloom. A teardrop gathered on the brush, then trembled into gleam. Not sorrow fit for any name, but sorrow near a dream. Outside the roofs were pearl and smoke, inside the canvas bare began to hold a little more than emptiness and air. No serenade came up the stair, no radiant summons shone, but when the first faint gold appeared, I felt less left alone. For some things do not come as joy, nor leave as sorrows do. They only lay a tender hand upon the heart, then move. Where the blue light went, something in me went also, not lost enough for grief to know. Where the blue light went, the star went out upon the pane, the blue withdrew at last. I set one quiet color down and let the shadow pass. Yet long after the room grew bright and common morning stirred, my heart kept listening to that hue, like half-remembered words. Twilight leaned on window glass, the embers breathed below. A phonograph began a waltz in in little turns and slow. The velvet chair was moved aside. The supper things were done. You crossed the rug in slippered grace when all the day had run. Your silhouette in lamplight gold came softly into mine, and all at once the humble room grew tender by design. Where the rug remembered our little waltz from long ago, and taught the quiet room to know. Where the rug remembered. You said, my darling, not too fast, so lightly with a smile, as if the years had only passed to bring us here a while. The phonograph gave out a sigh. The curtains held the blue, and every step across the floor felt old and somehow new. One thread of starlight touched the pane. One ember turned to gold. A reverie moved through the room, more dear for growing old. No serenade came through the street. No silver trumpet shone. Only your hand within my sleeve when all the day was gone. And then I knew how love survives, not grand and not in flame, but in the way two faithful feet still answer to one name. Where the rug remembered our little waltz from long ago, and taught the quiet room to know. Where the rug remembered. The record thinned, the lamp burned low. The embers gave their hue. Still on the rug our last small turn looked young enough for two. Twilight rests upon the frames. The wallpaper turns gold. A phonograph begins to breathe its little tale of old. You do not ask me for the dance. You only cross the room and draw my chair a little back as if to lift the gloom. When the lamp grew small, your hand still found me sure and mild, and made the tired room reconciled. When the lamp grew small, the teacups pale beside the grate, the embers breathe in red. You murmur, darling, near my cheek, the way you always said. The window keeps one silver star, the rug remembers grace. A little hush of reverie falls over time and place. No grand serenade fills the stair, no trumpet stirs the air. Yet in the light upon your sleeve, I feel how love lives there. When the lamp grew small, your hand still found me sure and mild, and made the tired room reconciled. When the lamp grew small, the record thins to whispered dust. The fire withdraws to rose. Still one soft measure lingers on, where only starlight knows. The presses had not thundered yet. The street was milk and gray, and in the room above the trucks, the headlines waited day. She stood beside the galley tray, with ink along her thumb, the copy spike already full, the linotype gone numb. A kettle hissed behind the door, a foreman rubbed his eyes, and April pressed against the brick before the papers rise. One column told of market wheat, one named a missing boat, one carried birth and weather there in narrow lines of notes. She bent above the proof sheet then, not hurried, not severe, and found one wrong small letter where a widow's name stood clear. One red proof mark curved around the wrong, small enough to vanish when the morning moved along. One One red proof mark, no trumpet and no flame, only a careful hand that kept a sorrow with its name. The page boy brought another stack. The night desk called for space. A clock above the pasteboard wall kept powder on its face. She crossed the letter cleanly once, then wrote the right one in, as if the dead deserved at least the dignity of print. The roller stirred below the floor. The whole room seemed to lean. The corrected slug was lifted out and set back into scene. No one thanked her for the change. No one paused to see. But in that line a life went out, as true as it could be. Some work is done before the town has washed its window glass, before the hats and breakfast rolls, before the milk carts pass. And some mistakes are small to all, except the ones who know. A letter wrong, a name unheld, a grief not fit to go. One red proof mark, bright beneath the lamp, held the paper back a breath before the plates were stamped. One red proof mark, plain as work can seem, yet all the city woke to news made kinder than a dream. At 6 the trucks went coughing out. The floor began to shake, and on her thumb the red remained long after daybreak. The pole outside has not yet turned. The street is barely blue. A milkman's wheels go soft and far. The awning drips with dew. He lifts the blinds a careful inch, sets combs in silver rows, then tests the kettle by the sink, the way a good hand knows. The cracked mug waits beside the brush. The razor strap hangs still. A calendar girl smiles from May, though March leans on the sill. He folds one towel warm and square and lays it by the chair, as if the man who has not come were already sitting there. Warm towel morning, steam in the glass and light along the floor. Some men keep a town from aging by opening one small door. Warm towel morning, nothing grand and nothing new, only the grace of being ready for someone passing through. At 8 the bell gives half a ring. Old Mr. Bell comes in, his collar buttoned wrong again, a week of weather on his chin. The barber turns the padded chair, not fast, not slow, but kind, and tucks the linen at his throat like peace one has to bind. He asks about the good county fair, the daughter out in Maine, the knee that troubles when it snows, the late and local train. Then with the towel between both hands, he settles warmth and steam, and lets the old man close his eyes inside a waking dream. Warm towel morning, warm towel morning, steam in the glass and light along the floor. Some men keep a town from aging by opening one small door. Warm towel morning, warm towel morning, with bay rum blade and Sunday shoes, a life may feel remembered by the gentlest thing you use. No one will write his name in gold, no band will cross the square, for setting out the brush just so, or warming morning air. Yet every face that leaves his chair walks steadier down the street, as if a little dignity had found its collar neat. The pole begins its turning now, the kettle sings again, and on the hook one folded towel keeps warm for the next man. The ropes were loosed without a fuss, the bell gave one small sound, the water took the ferry side and pulled the shoreline round. The river wore a pewter sheen, the gulls kept to the stern. Your hat was pinned against the wind, your collar softly turned. The bench along the outer rail still held the morning through. I saw you pause before you sat, and knew what I must do. I spread the market pages down across the painted slats. The grocers added the racing odds, the weather, this and that. So nothing cold should find its way through wool and age and sense. The paper on the bench, you sat and spoke of common things, the butcher and his knee, your sister's letter from the coast, the pears still on the tree. The ferry cut the river wide, paid in slow and patient halves, and every little thing you said made homely all the draft. No vow was ever needed there, above the diesel hum. No rose, no grand demonstrative word, no drum for what we've done. For love, when it has had its years, grows practical and quick. It sees the damp before you do, and minds it with a flick. I spread the market pages down before you even knew, and all the newsprint in the world turned warm by sheltering you. At landing, when you rose again, the wet had left no trace, only the faint shape where you'd been, and one dry, tended place. The paper on the bench, I folded it beneath my arm when all the crossing passed. One headline blurred, one corner torn by a river wind at last. And somehow that poor common sheet was finer than it sounds, for all the day it seemed to keep the shape of where you'd lean down. The driver shuts the baggage door. A thin lamp shakes above the street, and someone stamps the cinder snow from city shoes to country feet. I take the place we always took, left side midway, not too near. The heater with its iron breath, not where the baby cries are clear. The conductor comes with narrowed shears, snips blue stars through every fare, then tips his cap and moves along. 2 seats, one mine and one still bare. A lunch pail rolls beneath a bench. A woman knots her little boy's scarf tight. The window clouds, then shows one drugstore sign, and loses it tonight. The seat by the aisle stays open all the way, though every mile gives someone cause to stand. No one asks to have it, no one lays a hat or paper there by chance. The seat by the aisle rides empty next to me, past Quarry Road and the shuttered filling station light, and I learn how much a thing can hold by what is missing from it tonight. At Mercer stop, 3 farmers board with wool on sleeves and weather in their cuffs. A girl in white shoes counts her change. A soldier yawns and shifts his duffel twice. The heater ticks, the roof begins. It's steady talk above the panes. And every town goes by in signs. A church, a mill, a row of chain-hung gates. I smooth your ticket from my pocket fold, though it was used last Tuesday week, as if a thumb mark in the paper still might tell me where to look. You never claimed that road was long. You always said we'll soon be through, then slept a little toward my side when the bus took curves the way it do. Now all the turns come back alone. The dark farms drift, the roadside dips, and even the glass remembers how your breath once silvered it. The seat by the aisle stays open all the way past the feed store porch and the crossing arm gone black. No trumpet grief, no spoken vow, only the room one body leaves and does not take back. The seat by the aisle keeps faith with empty space, while the last town's thin and the headlamps comb the grade. And I learn how long the heart can ride beside the shape your leaving made. The driver calls the county line. The suitcase sighs against the rack. I rise when my stop comes into view and leave that second seat untouched. Twilight thinned along the wall. The embers kept their red. The phonograph beneath the lamp turned one soft waltz instead. You moved the velvet chair for me, I moved the smaller one, until a little floor appeared where all the day was done. Your slippers brushed the woven rug, my shoes gave back a sigh, and all at once the narrow room felt wider than the sky. When the chair stood aside, the little room grew wide and mild, and held us like a quiet child. When the chair stood aside, the mantel held one wedding frame, the curtains breathed the blue. A thread of starlight crossed the pane and found its way to you. You said, my darling, not too fast, so lightly with a smile. And every step across the floor made time stand still a while. The phonograph grew soft and thin, the embers ears leaned to gold, yet footsteps in that humble room sounded neither tired nor old. No serenade came through the street, no grand occasion shone, only the chairs against the wall and us when day was gone. And then I knew how love makes room, not by the words we say, but by the things we set aside to let the heart have way. When the chair stood aside, the little room grew wide and mild, and held us like a quiet child. When the chairs stood aside, the record turned, the lamp burned low, the starlight kissed the floor. Still one small space between two chairs felt blessed forevermore.
The exchange was lit by one desk lamp, the wall clock nearing 2, and rain along the tin roof seams kept tapping something through. You sat before the switchboard there, with pencils in a jar, the cotton cords in hanging rows, the town asleep and far. A doctor called from County Road, his voice came thin and crossed. A mother in the hospital had asked before she lost. Her son was somewhere west of Rome on work no train could mend. You marked the slip, then kept one jack reserved until the end. You let the other callers wait, then watched the small lights burn as if a life could hold its breath, until a voice returned. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, let no idle word come in where one boy must appear. Hold the line clear, no one in town would know how carefully you guarded space for love to travel slow. The night clerk asked for Bedford, Maine. A farmer tried the mill. The rain went hard against the roof, then softened on the sill. You answered each with quiet hands, then moved the cord aside, so nothing crossed that waiting place where distance had to ride. At 3, the overseas call came back, a crackle, then a name. You leaned close to the mouthpiece there, and did not sound the same. Hold on, you said, and patched him through, your finger on the key. And all the room grew still enough to hear what could not be. You looked away before they spoke, but left the circuit true. The rain kept time for every word that passed because of you. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, till the miles grow small enough for one voice to come near. Hold the line clear, plain work beneath the light. Yet all of October leaned in close across that wire tonight. Some partings where no station smoke, no waving from a door. They wait inside a numbered room and ask the wires for more. And some hands know the mercy of doing less, not more, keeping the world from speaking until one voice comes ashore. Hold the line clear, hold the line clear, for the word that has to find the one who needs to hear. Hold the line clear, I saw your hand stay still, and learn that silence held with care can carry what words will.